Hi, I'm Jennifer Soames with Head of Hope, and I am here today to share with you how to navigate the Social Security disability process. And I come to you today just as someone who is disabled, who has gone through this process and been approved. So, in no way, shape, or form am I a disability specialist. I am not a disability attorney, and this is just all from my personal experience. So keep in mind that just like each person and each unique disability and each reason that brings you to this video is uniquely your own. And so I'm just sharing solely from my own perspective. So let's go ahead and get into it. And for those of you who would like to learn more about my story of how I became disabled, I'll share with you at the end how to find all that out. So let's get going. So just like a GPS in your vehicle, it is helpful to have some kind of navigator to help get you through this very tedious, very long, drawn out, and exhausting process. And that is my goal here for you, is to simply help you navigate this disability process and hopefully win your case. So there are some things to know of what we're going to talk about today. We'll cover what to know before you apply, when and how to apply for Social Security disability, examples of the questions that you'll be asked. We'll get into hiring a disability attorney, obtaining your medical records, additional requirements that Social Security may ask of you, what to do when you come up against the denial and appeals processes, and just being real about the emotional toll that this whole process takes on each individual person. At least I know for me. What happens when you have a hearing with the judge? And what happens when you get approved? Disclaimer here that I will not be able to advise you on your own personal circumstances regarding your own disability case and what you're bringing to your application, as that is the role and purpose of a disability attorney. So if you make any comments in the comment section and ask any questions, please know that if it's specifically about your own circumstance, I will not respond to that because that is strictly the role of a hired professional. So things to know before you even apply for Social Security disability. You need to know your work credits. So what are work credits? Well, per Social Security's website, and links that I referenced are always in the slides, kind of up toward the top, so you can look at them yourself later if you want more details. But in order to even qualify to be able to apply for Social Security disability, you must meet Social Security's definition of disability and have worked long enough and recently enough to qualify for these benefits. And this turns out to be what's called work credits. And the number of work credits that are needed to qualify depends on your age when your disability began. And generally, you need 40 work credits, 20 of which were earned in the last 10 years, ending with the year your disability began. And if you're younger, on the younger side, maybe in your 20s or maybe early 30s, younger workers may be able to qualify with fewer work credits. And just know that if some of these details, work credits, and some of the things I'm going to talk about in the next minute or two are just like whew, over your head, just know that that's what a disability attorney can help you with as well. So if you glaze over, don't worry about it. So continue on with work credits. Work credits are based on the total yearly wages or self-employment income. And you can earn up to 4 work credits a year. Each year, the government determines how many work credits correspond to how much money you make. And so if you're watching this after 2023, make sure you check SSA's website for any updated information, because this is year specific. So the amount needed for a work credit changes from year to year. So this year in 2023, you earn one work credit for each $1,640 in wages or self-employment of income. When you've earned $6,560, you've earned your 4 work credits for that year. So how do you find out how many work credits you have? Call your local Social Security office to find out. They will be able to tell you. And while you're on the phone with Social Security, find out your DLI. This is your date last insured. This is a really important date. And per the Gillette Law Group's website, which I reference up above, the second website, DLI works, well, the Social Security disability itself works much like your regular car insurance. It covers you only until a certain expiration date. Your date last insured, or DLI, is the last date you are, quote, covered by Social Security disability. So disability found after this date will no longer be eligible for Social Security disability insurance. Now there's SSDI and there's SSI, and I'll explain the difference between those shortly. So basically, it's like any other insurance that you have, that if it's expired and something happens after, then you're not covered. So your DLI is a super important thing to know, as well as your work credits. And with those two that you can find out from your Social Security office, will help you determine your eligibility of whether or not you can apply for SSDI or SSI or both. So find those things out, or have your attorney find those out for you. Well, what if you're disabled, but you still can work part-time? Can you still work and receive disability? Yes, you can. And again, this is year specific, so the government changes how much money you can earn before not before disqualifying you from disability. So in 2023, the maximum average earning that you can earn per month and still receive your benefits is $1,470 per month. However, if you are blind, that amount is increased to $2,460 per month. So again, that will change from year to year, but that's what it is in 2023. So still continue on with our kind of housekeeping basics here. You can apply for Social Security disability insurance, which is just known as disability. And you can also apply for Social Security income. You can apply for either one or both. So what are they? So Supplemental Security Income, SSI, provides financial assistance to disabled, elderly, or blind people with low or limited income. Eligibility for SSI is based strictly on income alone, and your work history has nothing to do with it. So just income related, doesn't matter about your work history. SSDI, your Social Security Disability Insurance, aka disability, provides cash assistance to workers who are disabled or blind but have contributed enough to Social Security Trust Fund to qualify. So you paid into the system, right? That's where the work credits come in. And you'll need a set amount of work history to qualify, and the amount depends on your age most of the time. You can apply for both. When to apply? Oh, I had a chat with a friend of mine who's going through the process at the moment, and I asked her, is there any other advice that you think would be worth sharing? And she said, apply as soon as you can. And I said, oh, thank you so much for that, because she and I both kind of waited longer than we should have, because, I think for myself, I thought, well, things are going to get better. And, people have it so much worse than I do. I probably don't qualify, even though I couldn't work anymore. Physically, I could not work. And so her advice was apply pretty much as soon as it crosses your mind. Because the process can easily take at least 2 years, don't wait, especially if you are absolutely reliant on that income. You're not going to get it for a couple of years. And in the meantime, honestly, so many people are SOL. Like there's not a lot of help out there when you're in that in between stage. So think if you're thinking about it, just do it, because as my friend said, you can always withdraw your application, but you can't go back in time to start the process. So words of advice from someone who is currently going through it. And thanks to my friend for that. So how to apply? Easiest way is to apply online, and the link is shown there at ssa.gov/apply. And you will click on the disability box, the third one down, as you see in your image there. The online process this part is pretty straightforward. It's the stuff that they send you later that is more tedious and tricky. So they will mail you usually several packets of additional paperwork. Some of them can be up to, I think I got 2 packets that totaled about 17 or 19 pages. And just so you know, when they send you this paperwork, usually it takes a long time for it to get to you via the mail. So their due date is like the next day or it's 3 days ago. Don't panic. Just call the person who is listed in the letter that you'll receive as your contact and just say, hey, I just got this. I need more time. If that's what happens to you, no big deal. They don't care. They say fine. But just know that sometimes they want it yesterday. So here are some examples of questions that they'll ask you as part of the functional report. They want to know, what can you do? What can't you do? So examples include, how do your illnesses, injuries, or conditions limit your ability to work? Describe what you do from the time you wake up until the time you go to bed. How well do you handle stress? For how long can you pay attention? How well do you follow written and spoken instructions? Do you need to be reminded to go to places? Describe any changes in social activities since the illness, injuries, or conditions began. And those are just a few. There are more. So on this functional report, they do not give you much room at all to write. Sometimes it is literally a single line for a very heavy weighted question that you could write a whole book about. So use your space very wisely. I'll give you some strategies here in a moment. And avoid long narratives. I'm someone who loves to go into all the details, but this is not the place to do it, at least unless it's absolutely necessary. They don't care about your sob story. They just want to know how functional or not functional you are. So really use your space wisely. And again, I'm going to share some tips on how to do that here in a minute. They'll also want to know your work history as part of your work history report. And this is for all jobs in the 15 years prior to the date that you say that you are disabled. So questions that they'll ask include, describe this job. What did you do? What did you do all day, literally? And this is the tedious part. For each job in the last 15 years, they want to know, how many total hours per day did you spend walking, standing, sitting, climbing, stooping, kneeling, crouching, crawling, handling, grasping, or grabbing big objects, reaching, and finally writing, typing, or handling small objects. Yeah, very, very tedious, especially if you've had numerous jobs in the last 15 years before your date of disability. So, tips for filling out these reports. Because they give you very limited space, especially in that functional report, type out your responses on a computer first. Now, if all of this is a lot for you, too much, and you're not even going to be the one who can physically write it out, no worries. Have someone that you trust, someone that cares for you, whether it's your caretaker, someone who's a good friend or family member, to type it out for you. So you can dictate to them and they can type it out and you can go over it together, make sure that it is exactly how you want it worded, and sleep on it. Just like let it rest and come back to it, look at it again, make sure that it's what you want, have someone else look over them also, make sure it makes sense to them. And as you're filling out these forms, really consider your responses from Social Security's perspective. They only want to know why you can't work, nothing more, because they don't care about your story. They don't. They don't care how it has impacted you in other ways, things that are really meaningful to you. But simply looking at it, think of it as like your boss, of like, why would they fire you because of your disability? What are things that they would fire you for? Uh, so that's their perspective. Put yourself in their shoes, and they're strictly looking at facts like that. When you're filling these out, write small and clearly, or have somebody do that for you who can write small and clearly. And make sure that you scan and or copy everything that you send into Social Security so that you have it for your records. Because in case it gets lost in the mail, or for when you're coming up on your hearing, that you have something to reference to make sure that your story's straight, or if there's something changed, that to note that as well. And simply just really be honest, right? There are people who have abused the system that now make it very difficult for the rest of us. And so just be honest, right? Don't be one of those people who abuses it. It makes it even more difficult for future applicants. Just be honest. Don't embellish, but also be real. I had to get really real with myself and my limitations and my disability, and really come to terms with that, and really be honest with like, oh, I really can't do that. So be honest with yourself and be honest with them. So I mentioned hiring a disability attorney, and it is always useful to have someone in your corner who knows how to play the game. And quite honestly, consider this a game. Because like it is, you are playing a game and you need to know what the rules are, the strategies, and how to go from point A to point B. One, like, think of a Monopoly square, like from one square at a time. And most attorneys can help you from the very beginning. So if all of this process already seems daunting and overwhelming, know that many are happy to help you from the initial application, although some, which you do need to ask, will only help you after you have received a denial. So it just depends on which attorney you go with. A disability attorney works on a contingent basis, meaning that they don't get paid unless you win. So there's really no risk to you, especially financially, which is why you're applying for this, so that you can have a monthly income. And the max amount that they get paid, and again, this may be subject to change, but at the time of this recording, the max that they get paid is $6,000. And that is automatically deducted from any disability back pay that you receive. So you don't have to hand them money in any way. They get paid automatically if you win. And honestly, in my own opinion, a disability attorney is essential for going through the appeals process and, of course, any hearing that you might have. So moving on to medical records. Social Security will ask you for any medical records that you have, and that's with the initial application. So if you have any, hand those over. And if you hire an attorney, then they will subpoena your providers for records. But beware, sometimes your records may not be exactly accurate. I had experience with this, and certainly have friends of mine who have definitely experienced this and pretty dramatically. Um, just look over your records and make sure that they are accurate, because sometimes the details aren't exactly correct, or maybe things aren't worded the way that they ought to be. So just make sure. This is really important, and you want to make sure that your medical records are correct. So look at them and ask for any corrections that are necessary. And know that Social Security only views medical doctors, so doctors who are designated as an MD, as credible providers. I used to be a holistic health professional and have definitely pursued a lot of holistic options and providers. Their records were still included. However, doesn't matter how good they are, doesn't matter their education level or experience. Social Security doesn't see any holistic provider or non-MD as credible. So you can still include the records and do, or whatever your attorney says. That doesn't mean don't pursue holistic options, but make sure that if you are more in favor of seeing holistic providers, make sure that you also see allopathic or Western medicine providers as well, so that you have that in your file. Social Security makes this very clear, but just to also drive it home, that your doctor cannot determine if you are disabled. So don't ask them to do that. They cannot, and so don't even go there with them. Additionally, SSA may require that you have a psychiatric evaluation with a contracted psychiatrist. This is normal and standard, so it doesn't matter why, or I should say what your disability is, whether it's simply physiological or if it's more psychological. It doesn't matter in nature. Everyone has, I believe, has to go through this, and they will tell you the date and time, and you show up. Mine was virtual, and I believe that they're going to be continuing virtual, although they'll tell you. So additionally, you may also need to go through a neuropsychological exam or evaluation. This consists of hours and hours of neuropsychological testing. For me personally, I had actually done that before I applied for disability, so I was able to just send them the report there, but they may require that. And they will likely at some point require a physical exam with a contracted physician's assistant, a PA, or a medical doctor. And again, they tell you the time and the place. And for anything that does require a in-person visit, they will provide transportation if you need it. So if that's an issue for you, they will set that up. Oh, denials and appeals. Get comfortable with this. Expect to automatically be denied at least once, usually twice, sometimes more. So automatically, just know that you are going to be denied. The way I see it, it's kind of like these applications are going through a conveyor belt with someone with a denial stamp, metaphorically, just deny, deny, deny. And I think this is my own guess, is that they're just weeding out people who are serious enough to keep going forward and to get an attorney. Because when you have an attorney, they take you seriously. They're like, okay, this person's ready to play the game. But until then, they weed out all the people who aren't really serious about continuing on. So know that that is normal. It's nothing about you. It's just part of the process and part of the game. You can appeal, and it will require more paperwork. And this is really where your attorney becomes your best friend. The decision for an appeal, as well as just the first initial application, takes many months. Patience is part of the game. They might ask for more information. And after, for me, it was multiple appeals, multiple denials, and multiple appeals. And finally, I awaited a hearing, which can be anywhere from about 8 to 18 months. Yes, it takes that long. And this is after you've already applied, waited for the decision, and then appealed, usually multiple times. So by this point, it could be 6 months that you're already in. It could be a year that you're already into this process. And then you wait another 8 to 18 months. Very, very long, drawn out process. And in the meantime, while you're waiting, let's talk about this emotional toll. This process is exhausting. It is for anyone. Not only are you dealing with the disability or disabilities and the limitations that you deal with every single day and navigating that and feeling all the grief around it and working on just processing all of that, plus the inability to work and your life changing likely very dramatically as mine did. But this whole process is very invalidating. And if you haven't received invalidation yet, you will. Uh, just when you think that one of their contracted providers who is evaluating you seems to get you or is very nice and seems empathetic, uh, don't be so sure that that's what's going to turn up on your report from them. They are there to try to disprove you. That's their job because they want to approve as few people as possible. Because the more people they have to approve, the more they have to pay out. Yeah. And you have to continually prove yourself over and over and over again. And for those of you like me who have these invisible disabilities, mine's a traumatic brain injury that had a complete domino effect with other ramifications and a whole other long list of related diagnoses, it's much harder. And you may watch this video and say, oh yeah, well, she looks fine. She's able to do this video, but you don't see me every day and know my my bad days and my, real, very real limitations. So you have to continue to prove yourself over and over again. And it takes a toll on your mental health, at least I think for most people. And I would say it is traumatic in and of itself, because so much emphasis is on all the things you can't do, right? And it's just constantly reminding you of the things that you have lost, your limitations, and just all of this like loss, 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 loss. Not to mention like, oh, there's all this this diagnosis and this diagnosis. And it's just this constant reminder of all of that. And it can, I'm speaking from my own experience, it can rob you of your joy in life if you let it. I feel like Social Security disability folks want you to be this absolutely completely miserable person in order to qualify. And there are times, of course, where I am completely miserable and was through this process and, and will be at times in the future. But I got sucked into it and I am continuing to work on reclaiming my joy and living my life with respect of my limitations and very real challenges. But just be aware of all these things because it's not just about all the paperwork, it's all of this as well. And especially because it's so drawn out, it can take its toll, and it does. So all of these things to navigate in addition to the technicalities. So while you're processing all of this, finally you get a hearing with a judge. Now, depending on on the pandemic and how they decide to proceed as time goes on. You will likely have an option for a phone or a video hearing. During my process, they were not doing in-person hearings, so mine happened to be on the phone. You can authorize the phone or video hearing. They will tell you which one it will be. You don't get a choice in whether it'll be a phone or video. And you will get a letter with the date and time, and you show up however they tell you to show up. So what happens during the hearing? Well, just like if you were in a courtroom, you would be sworn in. There is a judge, there's a vocational expert, your attorney, and the stenographer, the person typing up everything, and everything's on record. So the judge will ask you why you think you're disabled. They'll ask you your abilities to describe your day, and pretty much it's a repeat of that functional report that you sent in, likely by this point, a long time ago, which is why it's so important to also keep copies so you can review it and make sure that if everything is still the same, that you can review that before your hearing so that you're saying all the same things. And if anything has changed, then you'll need to let them know that. So you get a chance to talk. And for me, I got to talk for probably the better of 30, 40 minutes in conversation with the judge. And I was very lucky that I had a very personable judge, one who was very kind, who was just calm and made me feel a little bit more at ease despite being incredibly nervous. And after that, then a vocational expert who will be present in some way offers 3 jobs that they think that you can do. The judge and I think your attorney, if I recall, get to question this vocational expert. And then your attorney gets to ask questions of you, yes, and of the vocational expert, if my memory serves me correctly. And this all takes, anywhere from 30 minutes to about an hour. It just depends on how quickly the judge is moving that day. And you'll receive the judge's decision in about 90 days, sometimes less. They will not tell you at the end of your hearing. So don't expect that walking away. You, your judge may have a decision already in their mind, but they will not tell you. So you'll get a written notification within 90 days, or, it could be less, but up to 90 days. So what happens after you are approved? Move myself down here. So you'll receive back pay starting 5 months after the date that you said that you became disabled. So there's a 5-month window where you don't get any money. That's just the way it is. I didn't know that going into it, and so hopefully that's helpful for you. And you automatically receive Medicare Parts A and B. Part A is essentially like hospital care, and you get that regardless. Part B, which is kind of other medical care coverage, is optional. You can opt out of it with additional paperwork, but know that your premiums for both are deducted from the retroactive start date for your coverage. So let's say that your disability date was January 1st. And sorry. So let's say that, you get approved January 1st. That's your date that you started getting your back pay. And I may be confused here of whether it was the date. I think it's the date that you started receiving. Yeah. So let's say that your back pay starts January 1st of whatever year. they will take out the premiums for your Medicare starting that date. So even though you didn't get approved until today, and you neither had approval nor access to Medicare in that whole interim time, they're still going to bill you for it and take that automatically out of your back pay. So that's just the way it works. Yep, it's money that should have been yours, but it's gone. I Yeah, you can fight that and do if you can. Your attorney's fee is automatically deducted from your back pay. So once again, that $6,000 just goes automatically to them. You do not need to pay your attorney directly. You will just get an automatic deposit of a lump sum for your back pay, and that is lovely. The automatic deposit that you receive for your monthly payment is for the month prior. So it's May right now. So my May payment is actually for the month of April. So it's always 1 month behind. And that was a little confusing to me at first because I was like, wait, I didn't get paid. Where's my payment? And I had to call them and find out, oh, it's actually a month behind. So know that. Depending on how much you receive, it is subject to taxable income or to taxation. However, unlike non-disability income that is taxed at 100%, disability income is taxed at 85%. So little nice 15% break there, which is helpful. Your case will be reviewed. Typically, the letters say after a year. That may or may not happen in a year, just depends on how much human power they have to go through all these cases. But it is supposed to be reviewed within 3 years. For some cases, kind of depends. This is all on their, it might be on their website, but at least in the paperwork they sent me. Sometimes it can take up to 7 years for reevaluation. But in the meantime, they want you to continue with treatment, whatever that is, whether that's just maintenance or if they think that you're going to improve, which they tell you that they think you're going to improve, regardless. So continue with treatment, show that you're continuing to make an effort to, be compliant with all that. And most importantly, live your life. Like, you made it, like huge celebration, huge relief. And just live your life and enjoy it to the best of your ability and keep moving forward in some way. So if you have questions that are just more general about the disability process, feel free to put them in the comments. Again, if there are questions that you have specific to your circumstances, your disability, your case, they need to be directed to a disability attorney and not to me. I will not answer those kinds of questions, so know that. But if there's like really general, I will do my best to answer them or just direct you to talk to an attorney. They are going to be the best resource for you. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this has been helpful. And if you're interested in learning about my story and how I got to be where I am today, I have a book called, and my screen is blurred. So it is called Head of Hope, same as my channel here. And you can find more information about me and access to the book at headofhope.com. It's also available on Amazon. So thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Take care.